Well, I've been in touch with some people familiar with the Birmingham Southern closing. The official word now is that they will certainly close on the last day of May 2024, but I've come across some stuff, and some stuff has been sent to me that suggests that there's still some diehards who know what they mean when they say they are going to pursue, quote, every option. And the president says, please know that we're doing all we can. I think that's probably true. I know exactly who ended up on top of the hilltop some time ago. The trouble for Birmingham Southern itself really began during the Vietnam War. It was, a typically encumbered Southern institution back then, mid-60s, and yet some fairly competent academics were on campus. It's just that it was indeed in the Southern tradition, if you will. They were not any of the nation's leading lights, to be sure, but people have heard me say that I knew what culture shock would mean for me, and it was all a terrible bother, and I tried to keep my options open, but many doors slammed shut in a peculiar way. On the matter of Vietnam, I was elected editor of the paper on campus way before the internet or anything like that, or the tremendous bulletin boards at Antioch or anything like that. And when confrontations developed over Vietnam, many personal avenues that I might have had were slammed shut, but by then I had already joined the Army, so some new ones did open up. But many things began to happen, and of course hindsight's 2020. Why would I have any more bitterness or disappointment about Birmingham Southern than places where some of my friends are now, which did not figure in any kind of countervailing influence concerning the culture shock that I would have referred to. That's ambiguous, I guess, but people know what I mean about a lot of that. It's meant to be polite about some stuff. But despite everything, when I began to hear, finally, I knew that Birmingham Southern couldn't survive for all the reasons people name, and then on top of that, the appalling situation, the growing militancy. I know many years after I had not even thought about the school for a while, I was told about this wild hair business of wild spending. They built things that were supposed to attract students. They didn't bother to hire any good professors, and I don't think they could have, because the place was doomed. But for example, they built chimes in the quad and all kind of fountains and this and that and the other. I never saw any of it, but I heard about it, and many people said the money's going to try for a Disney kind of atmosphere. as attracting real scholars. Oh yeah, scholars. Well, no, all they really had was they were a place for mediocrity to thrive. In a parallel universe, people could go there, and then with free law and free medical, they could go to Alabama schools for that. And beyond that, it was really just kind of a sad thing. You'd only have to cringe about Southern traditions and all the damage done. But then after all the wild spending, I noticed that even before that, they hired a crazy person who flunked out of the military in a flamboyant way, having gotten 4 stars, more or less a Vietnam freak, But after that, for me, I kind of was taken aback, But then what made me begin to feel rather resolved against the school was when the woke people took over. I remember an outrageous crackpot, one of the radio talk show type people, all his opinions on everything made Rush Limbaugh seem like a thoughtful moderate. And he really, and people were happy to attribute him to Birmingham Southerner the other way around. And, that was the final, that was when, I began to think, it's time to, put this school out of business. And all along, I was aware, this school is attracting people who might get into a decent school, so they can clearly see what problems they might learn about and begin to solve. But I became convinced instead that that the school was entrapping people, the gullible. And now it's happened, I read a big report, more or less summarizing the whole thing, with references to what turns out to be a narrative, really, the daily record of events, blow by blow, and people accusing each other of one thing or another, and really what comes up is an impression of too many scumbags with interests in Birmingham Southern as it is, or as they fantasize the school to have been or to be, or what it might yet become. It's just time. I feel really good about the fact that what became a nightmare is now about to end. They were Birmingham Southern prided itself at being a place of excellence and this, that, and the other. Back in the day, it was an alternative to the usual big state schools, Roll Tide and War Eagle and what else. But then they were not some sort of alternative to that for very long because of economic things. I've heard it said, well, the reason Birmingham Southern's closed is because liberal arts are out of fashion. Well, that may be true. But mediocrity is not even recognized concerning any number of institutions in Alabama, whether it's educational or whatever. and it doesn't do any good to try to say anything about that. I wouldn't. I'm glad, really, that there's a brain drain from Alabama to other places, and if there's an academic or cultural underground railroad, then that's worthwhile, instead of pretending to have something, a real alternative to availing oneself of making an orderly and polite departure, rather than to end up encumbered and entangled, as so many have. I try not to be too bitter about that, at least some level, and then at a personal level, I guess the less said the better in terms of what has happened. After all, I've tried to find a better place. I've been to a lot of places. It's only by accident that I'm here in Alabama now, more or less trapped here. I guess much the same could be true for me almost anywhere. But that's moot because, of course at 77 I don't have an agenda that is at stake anymore. I was, I guess you might say, confused enough to think that maybe something was at stake in terms of my personal future back when I was in my 20s, for example, or something. Hindsight proves that there was not really much on offer, nor did I really feel that I had some way to persevere. Well, not really, but I've tried to focus on the real facts as they are in Alabama, and not worry about what's in some other place, because some other place, like they used to say, you ask for directions in New England, and the farmer would tell you, you can't get there from here. Well, if you're a person like me, you can't get anywhere from where I am, So, but I'm no longer in my 20s, and that's some comfort anyway. But I can tell you what, I can't imagine what. There's one particular history professor that I thought was particularly repulsive on the payroll at Birmingham Southern. I guess maybe he had been hired more or less in the same spirit that they just threw money into building one thing or another, as if building another Disney World. And I even read about someone who has a Pulitzer Prize and who happened to write about Birmingham Southern and say that while Birmingham Southern is closing, it's not giving in to the lures that are offered at Disney-like attractions on other campuses. And I had to think, oh yeah, well, how about the millions spent a decade before the school's closure, literally in an attempt to, lure people to, facilities, bovine kind of mentality that has now brought the house down, along with really reprobates in the history department. So, but people like that, though, can plumb the depths of depravity, as the current campaign for the White House indicates. There's a certain kind of raw appeal that's similar to the January 6th events, no matter who's included in that particular group, that particular mode of thinking and acting is found coast to coast now. And sure enough, Birmingham Southern put them on the payroll. Well, that payroll ends soon. And I say particularly for people who did matriculate there, maybe they would prefer that the school close rather than continue, for example, the strong arm tactics, trying to stay open with really little attention to ethics and really the memory of Birmingham Southern as it could be, as opposed to, like a rabid dog that has to be put down on the west side of town. As for the campus, I can't imagine what will be done there. I understand that for a while Birmingham Southern was trying to do what Sanford did, move to an affluent side of town and so on, and then sell their current campus to Miles College. And I understand back then Miles was interested, but that since then they have had second thoughts and wouldn't want the damn place anyway. And I think that's fine. I think, the wrecking ball would do that place good. It's just a shame what happened, but it did happen, and pretending that it didn't and keeping something going on there branded Birmingham Southern would be wrong. It could be, the Hilltop Horrors or something, a Disney-like place rather than Birmingham Southern. But I don't know, Birmingham Southern now is a shipwreck, a derelict, to be managed or mismanaged, having been passed down from fairly respectable people, having been passed down from them to, or rather, shall we say, scruffy sort. It's about like what happens to the white elephants we call shopping malls. Shopping malls were touted as really the thing to do and the place to go. They still are. If you're in Russia, where they only lately have had cars and so on, and can drive them to huge, dare I say huge, shopping malls, and they enjoy the day there. There's not much else around. But in the U.S., that's just not the way to go anymore. It hadn't been, for 30 or 40 years. But, the wannabes, people can say, have I got a deal for you? You and maybe a half dozen friends can form a company and buy this here shopping mall with or without a cement pond for the goldfish, and you can be, executives in the fast lane. And I've seen that happen so many times. I read about, some white elephant that some threadbare mentality has, sold off, unloaded to a group of wannabes who think they are high-tech executives. They talk about sweeping renovations and will open again in 6 months. And it turns out to be, adjacent to an anchor, such as Cracker Barrel or something, and that Cracker Barrel's going out. Well, anyway, there are many things that are handed down, from one level to the next lower, and Well, Birmingham Southern's been handed down like some old shopping mall, and no matter how many fond memories people have, and I can't imagine what I could say about them, the kind of memories people have of college. But no matter what, or how people may have started off there and ended up at, well, I don't know, Tulane or something, or you name it, someplace, and done very well, no matter what those memories might be, that doesn't mean that people ought to think that, therefore, it ought to be thought of as it was long ago, with a better faculty and better students and a better attitude. The people there now, are not the kind of people who would have been trying to shake down the Goat Hill or something. The way I've heard about the unofficial version of ultimatums and political deal making. Really, they tried to make deals as if they were heavy hitters, and a lot of people I know in Birmingham, there's a tiny elite. I don't go along with them because basically it's formed over Alabama politics, culturally and everything, but they have picked up some of the ideas of what is or is not unseemly in a pinstripe suit, and they found that Birmingham Southern is in the hands of people who obviously then that cannot, turn around and offer something special for students. So it's time, it's time for them to close, and I hope soon that a lot of the stuff, back channel stuff, will dry up, Well, I've been here, sitting here for 22 minutes and some odd seconds, and that's more than enough time for all this extra verbiage on the demise. I hope it's over with. Something long coming. I knew in the early 70s, this place is done for, and it's been something to watch. The twists and turns, the pretensions, and now the frank admission that long ago the campus was taken over by people who wouldn't have been allowed to park their cars on the campus years ago. And I speak as one who was asked to leave one time, even though I showed the damn guard that I was a graduate, and I was simply getting out of the car to take a picture. Well, that goes along with things that have happened since then, and needn't to refer to that now, because what happened to Birmingham Southern, the agonizing decline, and what maybe is a death as of May this year, is long overdue. And I know they wouldn't want to claim me as a graduate. I think I respond in kind. I would have been better off maybe somewhere else, but looking back, I think I would have had just as much trouble. But I did remark that back when I got out of the car, I was on my way out on the new Arkadelphia thing that offered a view that I hadn't, had. I was only on the campus. I forgot what it was. For some reason, I had to go there for something, and so I thought, oh, look at that. And I had my little camera with me, and I parked for maybe 30 seconds. Up comes this tin horn telling me, "Move on, move on." I said, I'm here. I'm an alumnus. I'm here just taking a picture. He said, "Move on." And it's about like I'm treated here. or anywhere. But at the time, that was, the night was closing in, but had not gotten quite so dark as it has been now for many years. So, because things are generally pretty bad news for me, there's nothing special about the campus other than just a vague disappointment, until I heard about the Yahoos who had taken over. It was never such a cesspool as it became as of about 5 years ago. Well, okay, 25 minutes. That's more than enough time. The people here are, carrying on the magic here. You would think they were, always forever packing up a plane for a flight, baggage handlers, thud, thud, thud around here. Yes, this is worse than any number of places, but the same would happen for me anywhere. But I feel kind of good, almost happy about the idea that, hellhole is now officially dead. I can't imagine how students there could be any better than the specimens I was exposed to about 5 years ago, who would offer them an education. It was a horrific scene, and it was only politics that kept the place going as a diploma mill that some people wanted, to be able to use. But as a diploma mill, that way, no, it's a lose-lose proposition, Well, send condolences to your friends if you know any there. Probably no one who would even hear this, other than in a magical kind of way, magical thinking and everything, would ever compare notes with Birmingham Southern people. And anybody in the last 10 years, anyway, would be a different kind of person. Anyway, please know that those who would have a diploma mill in the name of more distinguished alumni simply won't be able to take advantage of what happened to the place. And please know that I do think that it's a sad day when excuses were made and an attempt to gain public funds for a private school for reasons that were never correctly explained. But so then, no love lost, right? Fare thee well, Birmingham Southern.